Welcome to Oh Brother, a podcast of three brothers trying to figure it all out, with your hosts Brandon, Colin, and Aaron. On this week's show, foster shelter for couches. Hello.
Hello.
How are things?
Oh boy, they're very tiring.
Oh no. Sure.
It's that like, yeah, what's that like end of school like slog, right? Where it's like,
right.
blah.
Well,
Like we're done with all our testing and we're still like doing stuff, but the kids are like, nah, we're not doing stuff. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So like, it's a whole thing. So, you know, it's all right. It's very field day is on Friday, and I don't like field day, and it's boring, and it's it's also that time where go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, it is Revenge of the 5th, so you know these things do come around and back.
It's true.
My lame Star Wars joke for missing May the 4th be with.
That's all right. It's allowed. You're allowed. Lame. I tell my kids only bad jokes here in my class because I'll say random things and they'll just look at me like, ugh. Like, yep. Only bad jokes here. Sorry. I don't know what you were expecting, but
yeah.
How's Aaron?
Oh, Aaron's good. Been a work week, so I'm
Mr. Timberlake himself.
exhausted.
What?
Aaron's name is It's Gonna Be May.
It's
okay.
Yeah.
I missed that at the first time, so I was like,
I'm
wait a minute.
going to try to change it once a month. So
I mean, you have been changing it once a month. It's very humorous. So like, I
do what I can. So,
I don't even remember how to do that. So like, I'm very impressed that you.
well, it pops up every time because it'll be like, oh, hey, do you want to do this over? Yeah. So my every time I log on, it'll be like the thing like, hey, do you want to do call in over Wi-Fi or wireless or whatever? And I was like, over Wi-Fi, and then it'll be like, do you want to change your name? And I'm like, sure.
Oh yeah. Probably because I just click the link in the email every time. It's just like on my laptop. It's like whatever. I did it once and it was like yes. And so I don't know how you do this magic of changing your name all the time.
There's somewhere in settings. I don't know.
No, I don't ever mess with settings. It's too dangerous to delve that deep. Right? You end up like a dwarf. Find some unnamed evil, and then you can't set it back. Can't set it back to how it was before.
Yeah. So.
Right. Then you'll be in like some important meeting and. No.
Yeah.
You'll be the cat lawyer at that point, being like, "I'm not a cat."
It's true. I promise I'm not a cat. Yes, I know.
Yeah, yes, obviously. Thank you.
Whenever, this is a very random side topic, but talking about menu diving, my friend and I used to like steal each other's phones and change the languages on them.
Oh no!
Oh my gosh!
I had to figure out how. So I put this phone in like German, right? And gotta try to remember how to go back through the menu and change it off of that again.
Oh, that's
that's what we used to do. We used to do that to each other's phones all the time, just for. We just go in the menu and change language, blam. See how difficult it was to go back and do it the other way. So we changed into all the exciting languages in there. I imagine now if you did that, it would be many more languages to choose from, right? We just had like Spanish and French and German, but I bet now it's like very exciting. You can do all kinds of things. But we used to do that. Back in the 90s, when your phone couldn't do anything else. And we had to amuse ourselves for a very long amounts of time, like at a restaurant or something. And just like like steal somebody's phone and switch the language. Be like,
Most enjoyable we could get, right?
yeah. Now watch him get it back. Like you're like, I played this snake game on my phone way too much. It's literally the only thing I can do. So now I'm gonna change my friend's language to Portuguese.
Enjoy.
So it's good. It's also a test of like how good are those little icons they put next to the menu, right? Can you really tell what the heck those things mean? Yeah. Do you know? Can you figure out what that means by just using the icons to navigate everything?
That iconography is just insane. I remember I have two anecdotes on that. I don't know if you guys remember, but when in Top Gear, when James May interviewed the lady who came up with all the typography and the
for the road signs,
the road network, for the road signs of like how to make it look, simplified at X miles an hour that they were gunning for to make sure that it was legible. And then on the other side of that is I remember listening to a radio broadcast or a radio broadcast, a podcast, about I'm secretly 87. About them coming up with the iconography for nuclear waste disposal sites, and how they were so concerned of like this waste is going to sit there for thousands of years and we don't know who or what's going to come after us. And so how do we label these sites as dangerous without, and this is what they're important, without piquing their interest and curiosity enough so that they'll continue to dig, right?
Yeah, so I've actually read about that before too, and that is a fascinating topic, in my opinion. And there's also some good sci-fi to be written there, I think. So if anybody, all those people who are better writers than me out there, here's your free sci-fi story idea time. Like, yes. So have you read about the stuff where they think about like designing a landscape that looks like foreboding?
Yes.
Like decimating the landscape and just making it look like foreboding and bad, and just so like you don't want to be there.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. I've heard about somebody had a crazy idea of like breeding cats that glow in the presence of radiation, so that you just know when you see a glowing cat that like you don't go that place.
Well, and their thought was with that is like, let's say 1,000 generations down the road, you don't know, the memory of why the cats glow, it may not be there, but you know that when cats glow, it's bad, right?
It's
and
bad.
They were basing that on some of the research that they were doing of group behavior, where there was one monkey, and every time the monkey grabbed something, like everybody was shocked. And so the group learned that when you touch the banana, you get shocked. And even when they removed that original monkey, the group taught it to every other monkey that they introduced.
Yeah, to not do it.
And so I know they were kind of basing the whole like, well, what if we just had glowy cats, and if you ignored that, you kind of melted and died, right? It's like, let's.
Yes. Well, the thing that goes along with that is the other part of, I don't know if it was connected to that or slightly independent of like creating some sort of like, this is where your science fiction writers come in handy, right? The like some sort of like, that group thing, or like some sort of like almost modeled on like a religious behavior about that, or about that area, that it gets passed down almost folklorically, right? In that kind of way, instead of just like you were talking about, like you don't exactly remember why you're not supposed to do that, but you just know that you're not supposed to do that, kind of to keep that story going, kind of like almost like an order of monks or something. That's like it's their oral traditions that sort of help. Yeah, they say like, don't go to this nuclear waste site. And of course, the science fiction story that ends in my brain about that is like, in like 1,500 years, this monastic order is around telling a tale of like why not to go there, and somebody's like, but what if I did go there, right? And then they
don't believe it. They think
because they don't believe it, right? They don't believe it anymore, and then they go do a thing and it like causes all kinds of mayhem, right? That would be really cool. like sci-fi story, I think. But the other option is that you like, I think the one in Finland? This is their plan. They're going to do that. They're going to bury it all on that thing, and then they're going to completely erase any trace that it ever existed on the surface and leave it alone and like forget it. So they're going to bury this thing like deep in the ground and seal it off, and then basically erase the trace on the surface and just make it like a forest.
I
right.
didn't know that.
Yeah. So like that's the plan. Of like, well, we could leave all these signs and that's what they're talking about. Like, well, that might actually make it more interesting to people. So if we just forget about it and seal it up, hopefully good enough that they don't find it again, and just leave it there.
Yeah.
But that also has its own dangers, because what if they do find it?
Yeah.
Right? And they're just like, oh man, there's this crazy thing down there. We should go open it up. And then blam, like
hey, well, this gets back
toxic
to
radiation.
Your Discovery Channel show, The Island or whatever.
Oh man, yeah.
Right. See, it's like somebody tried to bury that and like forget it and like make it so that nobody would find it again. And now
it's there.
And now
they're still digging around. The season finale was last night again. Holy cow.
Really?
My goodness. That's crazy. They ran so they season recap for The Curse of Oak Island, ladies and gentlemen, for anyone out there who's obsessed as I am about this. They were digging around in the swamp thing, and they just found like a paved stone path. And they're like, what? And so most of the season was archaeologists just like following it and trying to figure out what the heck this thing is. And there's like artifacts in there, like pieces of pottery that are smashed in there, and like ox shoes that have been thrown while they were carrying things up and down this little road that they made that was completely buried, and it's not written about in any records that they have found about the island. There's no mention of it, and yet here it is. And it's like they're all like, what? What the heck is this?
So what did they? What did they have? Anything? Was that the year? Was that the season finale where they found the road, or what did they?
No, that was all season. The season finale is they ran. They were, one of the guys was like, "Hey, I got this idea. What if?" Because they've been drilling all these test wells and stuff, so they have all these wells that go down and hit water level. And the guy was like, actually, he's like, I have an idea. I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna snag some water samples from some of these, and I'm gonna test for trace elements and see if anything pops on it that shouldn't be there. Right? Like looking about like, okay, let's pretend there is a treasure down under this thing. Is precious metals will show up in the water sample, especially corrosive metals like silver and stuff like that. Because they corrode, trace evidence will show up in the water. Right? So he's like, well, let's just do that. And I was like, that makes a weird amount of sense for this to happen like 15 seasons into the show. Why didn't we think about that before?
Right.
So anyway, they did that. And so on the season finale, they're like, yeah, we got the results back. And they were showing it, and it's like copper, zinc, silver. And the amount of silver on this trace thing is like enormous. And he's like, yeah, that's a lot. And one of the guys goes, well, so like if it was treasure, hypothetically, how much silver are we talking about to get these amounts? Is it like a handful or like a roomful? And he goes, a roomful. And they all just stare at each other like, what? Like,
Oh my god!
Like, are you joking? Like, what?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was very shocking. Like, wait, what? And then, of course, the conspiratorial mind will start roving and saying, like, that's just the silver.
Yeah.
If there's other treasure with the silver, it won't show up in that analysis because things like gold don't corrode. So if it's like there's like other stuff, or like gemstones won't show up in that, right? So it's like, wait a minute, that hold on.
what is that? Yeah, there.
Yeah. So their plan for next season, when they come back in like the summer or spring when they can dig again, is like to run that, to like do that some more in some of the wells, and then kind of like see where it's concentrated the most, and then kind of make that their new target area of focus. But that was a thing I was like, wait, what?
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was rather like, what in the world? And again, yeah, you're right. This is one of those things, like, that show is just, it's so tantalizing would be the word, I believe. Because just like, that can't be anything. And then they find like some really random thing. You're like, what? Why is that there? Like, what is that? What? There's no reason that should exist like that. And so you just get very curious about these things. And I can be curious because I'm not the one spending millions of dollars excavating sections of an island in the middle of Nova Scotia. So I don't.
Yeah, neither did they until they amassed a small fortune and then a TV series. So
that's true. Well, one of the brothers, him and his business partner, they own an oil and gas company.
Yeah. And so they had all this drilling equipment.
They have drilling experience and extra capital just sitting around. So like, okay. Yeah. But yes, I watched that yesterday. So funny you should bring that up, because I'm just like, silver in a hole in the ground. Like, what the heck? So yes. But again, no iconography on that island. They tried to forget it, and
it didn't want you.
And somebody found a random thing, and they're like, "Oh, that's curious." So again, that would be a very excellent science fiction story, even if they abandoned it all, right? And then somebody goes down and then they open the radioactive vault, and then blam, terrible things happen. Or it could be like, it's the only folk memory they have is like that it's a great power, and then somebody like really wants it because they think it's going to be like something they can use, but it's actually just like radiation that kills everyone, right? And so
that would make it even better, right?
That would be cool.
Of being used for evil, and so you're trying to race against the clock to prevent them from doing it because you believe in the last of the monastical order of like, it's a great power, but it's terrible and destroys everything.
Yeah, but all they know is it's a great power, and they're like, well, we can't hide a great power. We could use it, and we could do all this stuff with, and then like, yeah,
okay, Boromir.
It's actually a bad great power. Yeah, exactly, like Boromir style, right?
Let me tell you this other story.
Yeah, let me tell you this other story. But I think that'd be cool. You'd have like the future setting, and then they would, like, race against the clock of like, they shouldn't be hiding this secret power away. We should be using it, because they don't actually know what it is, right? They just know it's a power, quotes. So then all kinds of things happen, and then
listeners of the podcast can look forward to the audio drama of
we could write an audio. Oh man, this is beautiful.
Coming to your listening ears this fall.
Okay, maybe don't put a timeline on it. That's nerve-wracking. Don't do that.
Coming to your ears, maybe. Who knows? Maybe. That would be a lot of fun to put together, though. That
would be kind of fun. Listener submissions available for the group writing project. Here we go.
Oh yeah,
send in your
write
ideas.
A page and we pass it to somebody else. We just go around a circle and we make a story, and then we read it on air.
Yes, perfect. Just make a disclaimer. Don't be like Orson Welles. Like, here follows an exercise in creative writing.
And go.
Yes. I like this plan. Have to draft something here. Whoa. So what have you been up to this week, Colin?
I have been driving an awful lot.
Ew.
Yeah, so last week had a biologist call and had some concerns down in Peck Ranch here in Missouri. And that area is 4.5 hours away from where I live. And so I worked a full day Monday and then drove down to West Plains to stay the night. And then got up early Tuesday, drove the additional hour from West Plains it takes to get into the site. And then drove around Peck Ranch looking at a bunch of different things. Drove over to Rocky Falls for a little bit to see that place. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have never heard of that. I have not.
I guarantee you, I'm going to send you. Listeners won't get to see this. You have to. Super. I'm going to. You will like this because
let's bully Colin into posting it on Instagram. Okay, bully Colin.
Yeah.
Here we go.
You have probably seen Rocky Falls, and Brandon, you will like it because there is. You will like it because there is geology involved.
I do love geology.
Specifically, a massive slug of volcanic eruption occurred, and that basically blocked off across a stream when it erupted. And over the years, everything else has been eroded except for this big slug of volcanic material, resulting in a huge...
I don't think it probably erupted across the stream. I imagine the stream came later.
Well, but yes. So rhyolite. So it's all rhyolite.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's rhyolite.
Whoa.
So it's actual, and then the stream comes over and has eroded everything down around it, but still jutting out through the falls here, and the falls are rhyolite.
Whoa!
And they're huge for the Ozarks.
That's
it's a massive
cool.
structure, and it's really, really neat to go see in person. I had never seen it before, so I had heard about it, and then whenever I saw it, I was like, I have seen this in a magazine or like on a calendar page before.
I don't think I have, but this is cool.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. It's 4 hours.
I love Missouri igneous rock, right? It's very exciting.
Yeah, yes,
because it's very old intrusions, right?
Yes.
Like super old. So it's very cool.
So it's neat to see that and to see how the landscape has shaped around this and left it, right? Because it doesn't erode, basically, or it loads.
Well, yeah, it's much, much slower than the limestone, sandstone
exactly
action around it.
Yeah, so it's just really neat. It's really pretty, and we happened to be there on a day where it had tons of water coming down it, so it was even
it's been a bit rainy.
Yeah, and that was the other thing.
That makes it look cooler.
It does. Wait, yeah, you want to see Rocky Falls? You want to see,
you want to see the falling bit, right? I mean, the rock's cool, but
yeah. But yeah, no, the problems on the place where we were looking at were pretty unique. The most interesting one that took a little bit to figure out was there was a massive head cut. So a big ditch was forming right next to this road. And first off, when they built Peck Ranch and started making it to be a drivable tour to see the elk that they were introducing, which you can have your own opinions on that. Anyway, they put these roads across the landscape and down basically right along the river, because in the Ozarks you either build a road right next to the river or on a ridgetop. And when you build it on the river, when you build it next to the river,
it's a little steep in the between in a lot of places.
It's kind of hard, right? People don't like driving at 78-degree angles, though.
I mean, it's weird.
Yeah, I know, crazy. So when you put a road across a field or down next to the river, no matter how hard you try, that road will be elevated, effectively creating a small levee across the floodplain of the river. If the next thing that you do,
which is where you don't want a levee,
exactly. If the next thing that you do then is you go, you know what, we want this to be a drivable tour to see elk, an elk-like field. We don't have a lot of fields out here. We need to get rid of some of these trees. Right. Well, flash forward 30 years. And what has happened is the stream is coming out of this big bend, and this area of the stream, this reach of the stream, just so happens to be A grading, which means it's collecting sediment. There are huge that everywhere else that we were on the stream, all the sediment was gravel size or lower, and then or smaller. But at this site, these things were like 4 times the size of my head were being dropped out at this place, which means that that's all this energy just goes blop. And
stops in that
as
plane.
It drops out, that raises the stream bed and raises the surrounding area, which pools up the water. And normally during normal floods or normal flows, it's not that bad. You get a little bit of water there, it backs up the water until it finds the next low point, and then it busts out,
cuts it out,
and goes across this field. Now that would be fine if you had a healthy riparian corridor and no levee. But you have no riparian corridor, so the water picks up speed, slams into the levee, and then runs dead parallel to the levee, and
eats the road away at the same time.
Eating a road away at the side. And now you have this big, massive ditch that's being split open, just like a zipper, undoing right alongside the road, because that's where all of the energy is focused. And the problem is that the stream is going to be A grading. That's the behavior of the stream. We cannot address that. However, if we just try and stop the head cut with what we do is put a rock chute in there so that it kind of self-adjusts and dissipates the energy, that doesn't affect any of the entire side of the head cut that is the field, right? Because the energy is just going to be directed to one of those. So you would just be doing nonstop head cut stopping all the way along this. And it's caused some other problems because the problem is when you get a head cut, it doesn't just it lowers the bed elevation, and then it sends all of that sediment and gravel downstream. Well, what's directly downstream of this is a crossing, and so it's getting a lot of
stuck
gravel accumulating on this, which backs up water, which you get this continuous cycle of it trying to adjust. And now the road is like collapsing on one side, and it's eating at a telephone pole and exposing buried wire and cable through this area.
Oh, hooray!
So
we were talking about that yesterday in science, where the exact worst place to build a levee is in the floodplain. Like
I know,
because it's the floodplain's job to flood.
Yeah, and
it's in the name, right? Scientists name things like this for a reason,
right?
So you know what it is, right?
Wow. And this road was built through this entire area to get access to see this, and it is just the stream can't adjust, and they
need to elevate the road like those swampy Louisiana roads, right? Where they're all just like up higher.
If you had more money, yes, but so as soon as we got on site, because they'd sent some aerial photos and some on-site photos, but I couldn't tell anything what was going on because you don't get the subtle height differences in the photo.
Oh yeah, from an aerial photo especially.
Right, of and I'm looking at topos, but even topos don't show you exactly okay, there is a height difference, but it's having a lot more impact here than we originally anticipated. And so got on site, saw what was going on, and was like, look,
oh no.
We can't just plug this. We can't just re-slope the road because that's not going to make the problem go away. We can't, someone was like, well, what if we put a levee further up where the water's coming out of the river and block it there? And it was like, it's just going to find the next lowest place upstream of that, right? And so you're not going to make this river stop doing this. It's going to come out here. And so then we start getting into the difficult questions and conversations of, okay, we need trees back in here because that's why this is unzipping. And we need to have much more forested, a lot more roughness on here than just this grass and clover for the elk as food plot, which is hard because they want it open so you can see elk. It's also hard because, as I mentioned, there's a telephone pole here. And there's one thing about electric companies and power line companies that they're mortal enemies with are trees, within
Yes.
30 feet of their telephone poles, right? So,
Yeah, no kidding. Like, don't even look at our telephone pole.
so now,
Cut you right down.
so then, so basically we were like, look, we're going to write up our recommendations up to a point, but we have to bring in more people on this discussion, because this is now active area management, wildlife management, design and development people. We need to bring them in now. Like, if it was just a headcut moving through a field, I'd tell you to throw the rock chute in there and be done with it. But because now we're having to take into account inventory and other management considerations for the property, it gets really hairy really fast. So it was pretty to see, and it will probably entail a few more trips down there, which is fine. But it was just like, oh, this is a big hairy mess. Wonderful.
And sounds exciting.
Yeah. So then I got back. I was up at 7 yesterday on that's Tuesday, and I didn't get back home in my house until 8:00 last night, and then tomorrow we're driving back down to Springfield to go do a few more site visits there.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
man,
lots
good you.
of driving.
All right.
So, but it was all good. It's all good. It was fun. It was fun. It's really pretty to see. I love that area. I love being next to the by the current and all that place down there. So it was beautiful, but long day.
It's a long day. So I want to know now. I'm curious to tangentially relate to this. What are the thoughts on Missouri elk?
Well, they're a thing.
But you said you were very. You seemed very not enthusiastic about elk in Missouri.
Oh no. I am all for. This is Colin speaking, not speaking for anybody with the Department of Conservation.
Good disclaimer.
Right. No, bring on the elk, bring on the black bear, bring on the pumas. I have a hard time with then trying to create a driving tour for the elk.
Okay, got you.
That's
okay.
the part
that makes sense.
Because at that point, why not just tether one out and make a petting zoo? Right? Like,
what are you
like,
doing? What is that? Exotic Animal Paradise or that weird place? Yeah, there you go.
Right? Because what are you even doing? Like, and while in the crazy thing is, and this is the part that just blew me away. We were down there at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday at Peck Ranch, and probably about 14 cars drove through. And each time they'd stop and ask us, where are the elk today? Okay, have you seen the elk?
I'm being very loud. They're not here.
Well, not right now. They're not calling right now. It's not quite running season. But people are so excited to have elk, to see elk, and to try and have access to them. But it just it rubs me the wrong way that we're turning them into a spectacle of like, here, go, you can drive here, stay in your car and drive around these trails to see elk. Right? That just, I don't like that. I don't like
that's
the way
true.
That's across. But I understand why they did it, because it's raising awareness, it's getting people access to them, it's showcasing the work that they're doing and helping people have a bit more connection and understanding of what's going on.
And tourism dollars.
It's tourism, right? And the department does. You go down there, it's free access, right? You don't have to pay to get into the park.
Well, yeah, but
like that. But right, the areas benefit from that to have the elk, and I think of how up in Yellowstone it's a little different. Like the driving tour is going from place to place, and you just happen to see bison everywhere.
That's true,
right?
It's laying on the road.
Right. If Yellowstone pitched themselves as a driving bison tour, like it just changes the whole feeling of and purpose of what's going on.
So what you're saying is more elk. That way you won't need a driving tour because they'll just be in your front yard.
More elk, absolutely.
It's true. Well, because I know this. I want Aaron's thoughts on this too, as a outdoors enthusiast, right? Like, Missouri, weirdly, and it's weird to think about this, but it is a historic elk range, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, if you think about, they should be here because they were here and now are gone. So the sort of there's an ecological niche that is not being filled in some way, right? And that's not great for the whole thing, for the health of the ecosystem at large, even though Missouri does not look the same as when there were elk here before. But like they're supposed to be. So like, is it a good thing to bring them back? That's my question. Right. What do you think, Aaron?
So hunting elk is if you're looking at it purely just for like the industry aspect, elk is like considered big game. It's a very prized kind of hunt, and so definitely bringing that tourist dollars for it. I mean, I kind of depends. Like it's super cool, and I enrolled myself with my friend in an elk hunt here in Oklahoma. They do like a lottery system where they draw, and you get drawn. You get to have an opportunity to, take a buddy and go hunt, and it's very restricted, but it's a unique way to bring in kind of that extra bucks. No pun intended.
Whatever.
With
that was so intended.
with hunting, and so like I see it. I need to look at as far as environmental impact study kind of ordeal, but I can definitely see it kind of being a bonus. It's something that Missouri hasn't had in a while as far as definitely as far as like the hunting season goes for elk. And so I think something like that is very cool and very unique, because not that many states have an elk season of some sort. So I think for us, or for Missourians to be able to get that opportunity, and bring back that population, environmentally is something that's fascinating and unique. That's not a lot of states have. So I think it's cool, but again, I haven't done any impact studies or anything like that, so I don't know as far as what they would have effect on. But if you want something that's cool, then an elk is definitely that outlook, I guess.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
because they're very striking. Like when you see one, like, whoa! Because I can like remember the first time I saw one. I was like, holy cow, what is that monstrous thing? Right? Like,
yeah.
And I will say that the department gets a ton of criticism for the elk reintroduction as being a money grab, right? Of like, well, now they can charge for something, or now they can do this, or like now with the new bear season, right? It's the exact same thing of the only reason you want them here is you can make money on this, and so I
but they didn't put the bears there. They just showed up again.
Right? The bears literally just showed up. Unless you believe the conspiracy theories that we were bringing them in from Colorado and secretly releasing them. But it's like
that sounds like more work.
A lot. Right? They're just here now, and so I come at this from conservation. So again, this gets at the eternal debate between conservation and preservation.
Yes,
Leopold and name is escaping me right now. Oh gosh, what's his name? Oh, this is gonna. He wrote.
I want to say Low. Is that right? For some reason that comes.
No, John Muir. Muir.
Oh yes.
So Muir was definitely more of a preservationist, and Leopold was a conservationist. I come at it and I go, look, they were here. If there's a way for us to have them back in a reasonable way, why not? Because there are filling a niche. And if you look at the places in Missouri for where you could reintroduce elk, the Ozarks are kind of the best place to do it.
I mean, that's true,
right? Where population densities of humans are insanely low, like shockingly low, and where it actually still is relatively like how it used to be, right? I mean, obviously with some massive caveats here, but
all the agriculture, right?
Agriculture is big. There are also huge swaths of contiguous forest.
It's just like nothing. Yeah.
And nothing. Right? And absolutely nothing. And tons of protected areas. If you look at maps of state, federal, and natural areas and conservation areas and whatever, like most of it is in the Ozarks and in Southwest Missouri, right? So it's
that's true.
I go, like if we can demonstrate that we can, they can be self-sustaining, right? I would never want to be in a situation where we find ourselves in a lot of like trout parks where you go, trout can't survive here, but we're continue to release them for sport, right? Like I have again, things that rub me the wrong way. But if we can have a self-sustaining population that's healthy, that's doing well, and that is kept ecologically sound, that should be done. That is a good use of our time and our resources.
Yeah, I guess the follow-up question to that is a lot. You hear a lot of people arguing about like, this is just conservationally in general, right? About like, we should put it back to how it was. You know what I mean? They kind of say that. They argue of like, we need to re-establish the way that it used to be. But the question becomes like, when are you talking about?
Yeah.
Because ecologically, that matters a lot. Right? Like, when in time are you speaking? Right? Like, because there are big differences, and there are things that have been gone for very long amounts of time in certain areas that, their impact is still their absence is still being felt, and there are things that have been gone at a short time, and then that's a different kind of thing. So when are you talking about?
Well, this gets at the whole Jurassic Park question, right? Of like, do we go that far? Like, do we try and bring back, the giant sloth so that we can have more Osage orange across the landscape?
I mean,
like what?
Obviously, yes. That's what. No.
Obviously, we need more.
Well, I mean, this is I'm leading you to a megafauna question, actually, because when we've talked jokingly before about like the hippos in Colombia, right? Like, it's kind of funny that they exist there, and it's weird and it's strange, but like at a certain point in the past, there were large megafauna like llama things in the river there, and that thing has been gone for so long, and the hippo is like doing that job on accident now, kind of. It's meaner, and it wants to like eat you face off if you get close to it, but like it's doing that same job. So there's arguments for both sides of like, we got to get these hippos out of here because they're weird invasive species and they shouldn't be in Colombia. And on the other side, there's well, actually, hold on.
Well, that gets at the heart of, I had an instructor who totally argued that as long as a niche was being filled, it didn't matter what was filling.
What it was.
Exactly. No, she just totally flat out like, the niche is being filled, which means the ecosystem service and the ecosystem web is more complete than if it wasn't there. So regardless of whether it is a quote unquote invasive, and even that term, right? Invasive, exotic, whatever you throw at that, like each one of those means different things. So we have to keep that in mind. But like, whether it was introduced, that's another one. It's an introduced species versus an exotic versus an invasive. Like, so invasive typically means it's detrimental. So whether it's an introduced species or not, or a native species, as long as it's performing the same kind of service. So if you look at I think many people might argue, okay, right, so the elk weren't there, but we have a very healthy population of white-tailed deer, so why would we need, and like they're both cervids, they're both somewhat doing the same thing. Why would we need to introduce them? Well, the population of white-tailed deer doesn't need to be as large as it is.
That's just too big, right?
Too big.
They need a competition in there.
Yeah. So, but I do fall more in line with the thinking that if you have a function that is being left open, if there's a way to fulfill it, but this obviously gets into problems of like you don't want to be just introducing species to introduce them because you think it's going to fill a niche, because we know historically how that goes.
Oh yes, the cane toad,
cane toad, kudzu,
anything that got introduced into New Zealand,
anything,
right? Like that.
My brain, I'm very tired, but the what is it? They introduced it as an alternative to beaver, nutria.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, yeah.
Down in the Everglades, right?
Yeah. And up in Washington, oddly, they're
Yeah.
there too. So, like just look across the globe, you'll see examples of this. Of something was introduced just for one particular purpose, and it's gone totally haywire. So
and like blew apart, yeah, because those things are crazy.
Right. So that's why when I look at the elk reintroduction program, going, well, they were here at some point. The ecosystem that we are introducing them to, while it is modified, it still can support a healthy population. So again, we're not restoring. It would be different if we were trying to restore the landscape so that we could then put elk on it. Like that's totally different.
Yes.
What we are doing is we are conserving what's there on the landscape, protecting the landscape to keep it healthy because we know it can support these things on it. Like that's a little bit different thinking about what's going on versus, oh, it's a moonscape. We've got to craft mountains and plant trees so that we can then put elk on it. Like that's no, thank
you. Sure. Is there any concern about the elk modifying the landscape to suit them better? Is that an issue that people are worried about? Because certain large animals, they have an effect on things and they change it, right? And it could be such that it's going back to a more, quote, natural state that it would have looked like when the elk were there, and their absence has changed the environment in some way, and it will sort of revert perhaps in their presence. Is that a thing in Missouri woodland, or is that only a special circumstance?
Not that I know. I don't think there are any real concerns of them changing. Granted, we are still at extremely low population densities of them right now.
True.
So that any effects like that are going to take time. But then again, I think the thought would be if they're changing the landscape into such a way that they are able to persist in a more balanced manner for the population, then that's a good cycle for them to be in.
Okay.
I guess the problem would come in is if they start modifying it based off of their grazing habits, based off their migration patterns, based off of what trees they're running against, and they're destroying saplings of certain years or whatever. If that starts preventing other species, but again, the thought going, well, they're not new on the landscape. They've just been absent for a while. So they have been in proximity and they've been in the ecosystem web of all of the current animals out on the landscape at one point. So this shouldn't be too much of a jolt to the system.
True. Sweet. Okay. So I said all of that to ask you this question.
Okay.
Both of you. Are you ready for this?
No.
And I want your thoughts because it's a little bit intense. You mentioned Jurassic Park, and you were not far off of what I was reading about this week and a little bit of last week. Have you heard about Pleistocene Park by any chance? No.
No.
No. Well, it will not surprise you at where it is located. Yeah, that's right. It's in Russia. That's It's in Siberia. This dude, he's like a biologist guy or whatever. He is yes, he is, his goal here is to reintroduce megafauna to the Siberian Arctic.
Oh.
In order to make it more, in order to like sort of modify the landscape and change how like refreeze permafrost in areas. Because his theory is that the animal presence will actually increase the amount of permafrost and keep the Arctic frozen because of the animal behavior in the landscape. Right. So he started with things like reindeer and moose that were like indigenous to Russia. And he has all this land randomly in the middle of Siberia. I'm not entirely sure how he got it, but
Don't ask.
So he started that, and then he started to slowly bring in other large species like muskox and like weird Arctic horse things. And he got some bison in there. And they just roam around in this like literally like Pleistocene-esque like tundra, like an ice age kind of thing happening. And what the thing that he has found so far is that like, because they're out there like tramping around and like smashing down all the snow to eat it, the grass and the lichen and stuff, that permafrost is actually refreezing at much higher levels in the winter because there is no snow to insulate the ground. So because the snow acts as such a heavy insulation, it's actually even though it gets like stupid cold in Siberia, the permafrost is not refreezing at the historic depths that it should be. And, you know, they're worried about like the carbon trapped in the permafrost and all that stuff. And so he was like, well, what if we just put animals back on it? Because it's like empty and nothing.
Yeah. Is that because, so the thinking there, the landscape that they were on was like open prairies and grasslands. And over time, with the loss of large megafauna, it's been slowly converted to more forested areas?
Yes. And the trees trap a lot more heat. And there are big trees in the way. So he like goes around and knocks trees down in his little area.
Sure.
And like then once they're down, these big animals sort of keep them gone because they trample areas and they
graze them,
eat the shoots and stuff.
Yeah.
And then like he's found that the permafrost in the areas where he's doing this is refreezing like way more than in other areas. And it's this really like bizarre like I was reading about it. I was like mildly fascinated. Like, he's doing what? Wait, and this is another one of those like weird, long-lasting experiments that could literally only happen in Russia. Right? There's no place else in the world that would be like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and then just do it for like 25 years. Like,
it has that space to do it, basically. Too.
Yeah. So it's this rather fascinating like thing where he like just this is his thing that he's doing, and it's like rewilding the tundra to fight like, you know, this permafrost thaw with giant animals back in the Arctic.
Yeah,
it's very weird, but also kind of like crazy and interesting at the same time. Like,
well, again, that gets to the
I guess that's the when part of my question from earlier, right? Like, when is it? Like,
exactly, because then the whole point of that is going, well, can the existing climate, like it, things like that, where I go, okay, if you were saying that there's a global impact on what's happening in that area, right? Like, it's globally.
Yeah.
How much of an impact do you feel treating it locally is going to do?
Well, true.
And do you see your local impact having sustained longevity for the next 30 years, given the global predictions for it to not.
Not true.
So
you got to start somewhere with proof of concept, right, on the small scale.
You have to start somewhere. And if you're trying to protect, because then people go, well, why do you try to conserve any areas if you're worried about global impact? Yeah, I mean that's true. but in this
that's
case,
not the point.
with the explicit intention of like reversing the impacts. I think it is interesting because climate. The glowing terms right now are climate resiliency in not just infrastructure, but in our conservation and management efforts. So when we put in stream bank stabilization project, climate resiliency is something that they talk about. They go, okay, well, it can handle the floods of today, but given the models and projections, can it handle the floods 10 years from now? Because once the project goes in, we want it to stay there. So it's a little interesting to think about that project and go, well, this is kind of trying to almost reverse climate concerns and make it more resilient, and not just try and buffer against the changes that are happening or expected to happen.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. It's just so like out there that I was like, what? This is wildly fascinating. I must know what they go. Aaron, what do you think about bringing giant animals to the Arctic?
Well, whenever I think of stuff like that, I always think of like people doing like the studies of trying to bring back like the mammoth or like things like that. So
that is also one of his stated goals.
Yeah,
is he wants a mammoth or quote cold adapted elephant. Right, yes. Because it wouldn't be an actual mammoth. It wouldn't be like a real life mammoth. Let's be real. Yeah. Like, it would be like some sort of weird genetically modified elephant to fill the niche, that giant megafauna niche in his park. Like that's that's one of his stated goals that he thinks would be awesome.
That's my first thought whenever I was thinking like, oh, that's really cool to do this. I mean. It is kind of one of those situations where, well, if I reintroduce this into this area, how is that, it's going to affect the environment in some way. But what if that gets, unable to manage, or if something happens, or what if they escape and start repopulating in another area, go ahead.
Oh no, I'll let you finish.
It's like that. Concept of if it gets out, then this happens, or like, it ruins science for everybody if this fails, or like, that woolly mammoth that you can't keep track of is escaping and creating a whole new subspecies because it's adapting and breeding in this way and blah 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 blah. So it's very it's definitely bizarre and wild that he's taken amongst him, upon himself to, I'm going to do this and just kind of go with it. So I'm intrigued because you don't really see things like this happen too often or any, at all.
So, yes, at all. That's
So to me, it's unique. I definitely kind of want to see read more about it to kind of see the actual impact that it's having on one particular area. And if it's possible to even bring back other kind of things, it's like, oh, okay, well, what is that going to do, not just for this, but for other areas? Like, well, if this can work in Russia, what if we're going to try this in this country or in this area? So I'm interested to see the actual outcome of it.
I'll add on top of that, with the comparisons to the elk reintroduction, the thought being, well, we also now have black bear and puma, both which will prey on elk, to some extent, reintroducing these large populations in these areas. How, again, self-sustaining, self-correcting are they going to be? Are you going to have to come in and actively be hunting these, right, to control the populations? Do you know how much the landscape can or should support for them, and what is the appropriate population density to get the desired effects. I think there's just a lot tied into that than just, I want they're not there, so let's do this.
True. Yeah, and I've read something where he was talking about like if they did that, then like because right now the populations of all those herds are still quite small, I think.
Yeah.
So like, but he has stated, I think in an interview, that like his next goal after they reach a certain point would be to try to introduce some sort of predators into the mix, because they do need a balance. Otherwise they will just sort of go insane and like have like 70 billion bison, and you're like, that's not what I want.
Yeah.
I don't know what predators they would be in that area, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if like, I mean, knowing him, he'd be like, I'm gonna have to make a Smilodon. Clearly, that's what you.
Yeah, if you're bringing back cold adapted elephants, his next line is, well, if we could have some cold adapted lions, I think that'd be good.
I mean, obviously, right? That's what you want, right? That's what.
Yeah.
Think of the driving tours, Colin. How many? I'm sorry, I couldn't help that. But yeah, I was reading about that like the other week, and I was like, that is fascinating, and yet like the weirdest plan. Like, what? No. Again, that's one of those like categories like only in Russia.
Yeah.
Is that somebody's idea of like, well, what about if I just put a whole bunch of bison in this field? And they'll be like, what? But it's sort of like, it makes sense, but also you're like, but what? How did you, what? Why? That's one of those, it's one of my new fascinations at the moment is just reading about that guy and his, like, this weird idea about the Pleistocene Park. And then, of course, like Aaron was talking about, having seen Jurassic Park, I do have, like, trepidations about that. Like, oh no, if he does get a mammoth, what happens? Like, oh no. Or his Arctic lion, right? Oh no.
Right.
What did that escape?
Yeah.
Like, I know it's very large up there, and it'll have to go quite far to find anything else to get into, but like, second sci-fi inspiration for the day. Here we go.
Yeah, that's just what we need. They find almost.
These can be separate stories. They don't have to be the same.
No, we're bringing them together. We're tying them.
Oh, they bring them together. Oh, the cold adapted lion travels to Finland and
travels Finland to attack the last the monastic monks designed to.
What if the glow in the dark radioactive cat is a cold adapted lion?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes. And they just happen to bring them in from that.
And then
I love it.
I think it's great. Fantastic. That's good.
Yeah.
No, I really did want to share my just with that with you, because I thought that was just the craziest idea ever of like, okay, well, we're gonna do that. So I wanted somebody else to hear this and see their thoughts. So I'm
not crazy and thinking
that has been around for a while, but I've just heard about this. So
oh no,
do what?
It's like, it's not crazy that I think this is crazy, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, it is, because it is crazy.
Yeah, no, totally is. But again, you got to try and do something. So. Oh, yeah.
It's true. So why not mammoths? That's why. Do you have any plans for the weekend, Aaron?
Well,
are you going to be on call all weekend?
No, that's next week.
Okay.
we're gonna go spend time with Shelly's mom for Mother's Day. We're gonna go to Tulsa. There's some festival or something down there. Then we're gonna
nice.
Do some other things Saturday or Sunday. To which those are, I do not know. But we will be
surprise Sunday.
Yeah, so we'll do that, and so that's kind of all that we got going on. I got to get through the week first.
That's true.
Yeah, it's almost done, but yeah, that's kind of about it. We're gonna go down to Tulsa, do a festival, do some festival-y things, and then just kind of see what happens.
That means festival food, though, so this could be exciting. It could be.
Yeah, but I don't know like what it's called, like May Festival, but I don't know like what
Very creative
what
name
it is or what it does. It's like downtown Tulsa area, so
okay. You need to let us know if you do the maypole thing. Okay, we need to know about that. We do.
Over under.
I'll see what they got.
All right, yes, over under, right? Did you guys do that in your 4th grade program too? Right?
We did, yes.
You go.
That we did. That we did.
Yes, I remember that. I remember my friend's ribbon broke, and he just sort of like wandered around the thing with holding the ribbon. Slack. It's very depressing looking maple.
Miming the motions.
Yeah. It's like with this like weird limp ribbon in his hand. Like, oh no. I should probably ask Aaron for advice because I have to go to Branson on Saturday. Because it is finally, allegedly, now, if we get to go to Branson on Saturday, it's new couch time. Our couches.
Oh, is it?
It's not going well. It's on its last leg, proverbially. So like, it makes all kinds of exciting breaking noises. Like my side, like Susan's side, you can't recline it anymore. So like once it's opened, you just have to sort of leave it there and work your life around the fact that the little foot thing's up. Because if you put it down, it will never come up again.
Now, Aaron, as a former owner, sorry, go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I was going to say on my end, the springs underneath have collapsed so thoroughly that you just sort of like sink into the couch and like can't get out. So it's terribly uncomfortable. It's
giving you a big hug.
Yeah, or something.
Now, Aaron, as a former owner
Colin.
of at least 14 couches at one point at the same time, what do you look for in a good couch?
Yeah, I believe it was a coastline of couches, if I remember correctly. That's what I
indeed.
Well, I never bought any of my couches, so I have no actual input. I've never.
Yes, but you own so many. I need to know like what makes a good couch. That's what I need.
It kind of at one point it kind of looked like that I was like a foster shelter for couches. So
title.
Yes.
The only advice I can give is make sure it fits through the door. Make sure you don't live on the second floor. And make sure
I do not.
A friend that has a truck, because I had to move that sucker without one. So that would just be my advice.
And spay and neuter them so that they don't
they don't multiply, right?
Exactly. So that's kind of what. Jeez, like I said, I never bought mine.
Well, the truck isn't going to be a problem because Susan's sister owns a furniture store, so that it will come to us. But like,
as long as it fits through the door, I mean, you should be pretty fine. Yeah, mine. Well, we're already looking at new couches anyway for this one because the couch that we got or that inherited from my friend and his wife, it is. It's older, now, and it's time to put it out to pasture pretty soon. So
that's true. We bought this couch when we got married.
Yeah,
that's why it is.
So that is all you need about the couch.
It's a long couch life right there. Just
put it out on the put it out on the corner and put a sign that says free hat on it, and someone will take it off your hands, so you don't have to move it or donate it. Whatever you want.
It's not donatable. The one that we currently have, it's almost our city does that like citywide cleanup day.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So like every section of the city like has a couple days where if you set something out in front of your house, the city will come and pick it up and take it away.
Yeah. Okay.
It disappears forever, and that's our day is coming up very soon. And our couch is going outside. That's just where.
Fair enough.
So they had the citywide. They do it in two parts. They have the citywide garage sale thing, where it's like they basically just say, "Hey, if you're gonna have a garage sale, do it this weekend," and people come from like all around, and then like the whole city is having a garage sale. It's kind of weird. I don't ever really like attend. I already have too many things, so I don't need to go buy other people's things. But like, it's a deal. People do that, and then conveniently after that they have citywide cleanup day. So you can like get rid of everything else.
I see.
And they just have it sectioned off to where they come by and take it. So like, it's very odd. But yeah, that's coming soon, and that's where our couch is going to have to go because it's not sellable in its current state. It's too dilapidated.
Oh, I gotcha.
So we're going to do that, and then we're going to go Saturday, I guess, and attempt to procure a new couch. So it's going to be very interesting times because I don't do well with shopping, especially for like large furniture pieces. So it's going to it'll be weird.
Best of luck. Godspeed.
Oh yeah.
All I can say. I'm not serious.
My back says we need it real bad though. So like,
right. Like it's going to be a good thing, but it's not going to be a fun thing.
Yeah, because I don't really want to drive all the way to Branson to do this. Right. But because it is her sister's store, like.
Yeah.
So,
it's good.
Yeah, kind of just needs that.
It's very nice. So, yeah. But yes, that's what we're doing. It's going to be a couch adventure on Saturday. Which is exactly what I want to do the day after field day. Oh, no. And that's blah. Colin, what about you? Anything exciting coming up?
No.
That we can look forward to talking about next week?
Yeah. Thankfully, not thankfully. I don't know. I don't have anything coming up really. A big news announced today by the governor is all state employees must be back to work at their original offices starting May 17th. No exceptions.
Uh-oh. Oh no.
And
goodbye, kitchen counter.
Goodbye, kitchen counter. Goodbye, my office. Goodbye, every place that I worked. And apparently, he didn't talk with any of the state agencies about this.
Oh.
He just announced
that sounds
it.
Exactly like something he would do.
Just announced it and was basically like,
"Yep,
make it work." And for those of you not looking at your calendars or knowing when we're recording, it's in a week. Basically.
Oh yeah, today is the 5th. Is the 5th of May. If you did not catch Colin's terrible joke at the beginning,
it's fine. So what? There are tons of people who are really angry because a year ago, every single state agency invested literally millions of dollars in creating. In taking their entire workforce remote. And it was, they basically had all these dashboards of watching who was able to work from home, what kind of work they were doing, and productivity. And they were able to get it back up to about, quote unquote, 90% of what it was in the office, with everybody working, with most of the state working remote. And so now all that infrastructure that they had built up just gets, tossed aside effectively. Because
and that's the weird part is like a lot of them don't you don't need to be in the office.
No,
like, it's not going to benefit them. They're not going to work better.
No, matter of fact, they're probably going to
right.
work
So, like, all of a sudden, decreeing magically, like, again, the government of Missouri currently not paying any attention to what people actually want.
No.
It's a farce. If you like, oh, we voted on this, and the governor and the senators go, we're not doing that. Like, what? Wait, but what? That's not how. Listen.
Let me talk to you. Civics 101.
Yeah. That's not your job. That's
and I'm just thinking of like all of the parents who had a summer planned to be home with their kid, and now within a week,
because that's very soon too,
have to find something for their kids to do, or find other arrangements for their kids to get taken care of. So I thought that was really cruddy, and basically, especially whenever he just flat out prevented and said no hybrid plans allowed. And
yeah, but if he just said that, does that actually mean anything? Is there anything behind it, or is it just him being an idiot? We're not fans of the governor of Missouri here on this podcast.
I mean,
at least I'm not.
I don't know how this was presented, but our agency basically was like, "Yep, we aren't allowed to make hybrid situation." Because my thinking was, I was going to be working with my supervisor to turn my position into I'll work from the office, 3 days a week, and I'll work from home the other. Or something like that, right? Something reasonable.
Well, yeah.
But
that's reasonable.
They're just flat out. Because it's like, obviously we can do it. We're all doing it for the past year. There's no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's the weird part, that there is no reason. And I think there's going to be a lot of pushback from other places too, like companies in general, because like a lot of their employees are going to be like, I don't have to go to work, right?
No.
Like, I can do literally everything here. Like, and people have been just as productive, probably more productive in some instances, just like hanging out and doing their work. And it's like, in some situations, I imagine it's much less stressful, right?
Every single
a happier environment.
Every single study that you see on this shows people who work from home have a report having a higher quality of life, having less stress, and are actually either just as productive or a little bit more. And the thing is I think what I feel frustrated by is the fact that even my supervisor was talking about how kind of in the middle of all this, she was like, I'm not working 8-hour days anymore, and I'm still getting the same amount of work done. And I'm like, yeah, because the amount of time wasted at the office was a lot, right?
Yeah.
You can't, nobody, I don't care how dedicated a worker you are, can sit down at 7 a.m. and literally work, like focus work on writing, on reading, on running programs, on data analysis, on all that, and then clock out at 4 and go home. That's not how people work. Nobody does.
Oh yeah, no. And that mentality about how you have to do that is a weird holdover from like the Industrial Revolution, when you were going to a factory,
right,
and working those shifts, right? And the 8-hour workday was like the concession of like the unions going, we cannot work 15 hours. What the heck are you doing? You have to, right? Like, it's so this like magical thing that like where people seem to think that office jobs are like, you just sit at a desk and work nonstop for 8 hours. It's like, that's the most unreasonable thing I've ever heard. Like, what are you listening to yourself? Like, no, it's not.
No, I mean, the number of times where I would take my lunch hour and actually just like nap and then wake up, feel like amazingly refreshed and do more work in the afternoon, and not necessarily, sure, I didn't clock out at 3, which is when I was supposed to. I'd work until 4, but that's because I didn't work an hour because right. But now I was still putting in the quote unquote 8 hours. They were just broken up throughout the day. And
Well, and that's the other thing that's really nice about working from home is you don't have to do them all contiguously.
Yes.
Right? You work for a few hours. You can go out. You can run some errands. You can take care of your business. You can go to the bank. You can go to the utilities office. It's never open. You can you can do all these things. You can come back in a couple hours and you can work some more. You can, maybe you work 2 or 3 more hours. You take another break. You eat some supper. You do your thing. After supper, you work for another hour and a half, and you're done. All right, you can break it up in such a way that it's a lot less stressful. You can be more productive because you have time to reset your brain a little bit instead of like slogging through a straight line of hours. To do a thing, and I just feel like it's not necessary to do that. Like, especially in a lot of jobs that are like, oh, I'm running data analysis. You don't need to sit down and run data analysis for 8 straight hours. You're not good. It literally doesn't matter.
No. And I'm not obviously complaining here, but I'm just more lamenting about the fact of like, this was such an opportunity to genuinely make positive influence on the workforce and leave options open for people who it would work for, because it doesn't work for everybody, right? There are people who work from home.
Well, no, but it works for some people.
But to completely take that off the table and take away that from people who had probably the best quality of life they had ever had in their working career, finally, and just say, nope, can't have that anymore. It's like,
it's very short-sighted.
Really short-sighted. Really short-sighted. Because honestly, I feel like if you could take some of these positions and turn them into hybrid, you'd have a much, much higher retention rate for employees. That you could have, all of a sudden that becomes a marketing ploy to bring people on and go, you get to be a staff biologist for the Department of Conservation and work from home part-time.
Well, right? That's great. And it kind of decreases like the burnout thing of where you have to do that. You can probably downsize your office expenditures, right? Yeah. You don't need a
so that's what
things.
That's what the state of Oklahoma is pretty much doing, because especially with DHS, we have such a high turnover rate. A lot of people looked at the first phases of COVID and they're like, what can we do to, number one, save money? And then someone's like, let's sell offices. And they're like, okay, hold on to that. And then they're like, okay, well, talking with people, being able to work from home, being able to, only sometimes, only working 4 days a week or doing this. And so they took a lot of what they learned from the initial part of, doing teleworking, doing everything online. And they realize, okay, well, that we can actually use that to bring people in more. And I need to look at the numbers somewhere, but someone was telling me, like, we actually gained more people, and we were actually able to get more positions to bring more people on, because it's more appealing. Like, I can work, for the state of Oklahoma and work from home and only work maybe either 5 or 4 days a week. And they're shutting down some offices, but they're able to kind of cut those costs and, worry about, financially marketing the state and bringing more people on. By doing that.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought that you can downsize offices but increase staff, right? That's like the best thing to do with your money, right? Like, you don't need this building or as many of them, and I can hire more people to do the job. That way we have more coverage and you can have better time and all that stuff. That's a great idea. So like, it kind of goes back a little bit to what we were talking about with the ecology thing. Like, in some instances, like, when do you want to go back to? Like, maybe not that far in this case, right? Like, this is an instance where maybe it's not a good idea to go back and, that mindset of like, oh, everything was better back in the day, right? Because you know, the governor's like a 1,000-year-old dude apparently. So like he's got that mindset of old man who's like everything was better in my day, right? So he wants it to be like it, you know, we want it like it was. Like, well,
Yeah.
well, you see, some things are actually better this way. So like, I don't know if we want to do that. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, so it'll be an interesting transition back, obviously, and we'll see how it goes. I'm still kind of holding out hope that the department will lay out try and carve out a niche in rules of their own.
Yeah,
but
because I mean, if he just says do this, like, I mean, as far as I'm aware, that in and of itself doesn't actually mean anything, right? I think you have to have something to back it up, right? You have to like have a decree or something. Like you can't just be like, do this, and they do it. I don't know how that works.
I'm trying to find the exact language.
But the state of Missouri is also busy passing just like the most useless junk instead of like focusing on things that are helpful. They're all just like, man, we should abolish daylight savings time, which is an indication of like how they're all like 70-year-old men. Like nobody cares. Stop. It doesn't matter. Also, how idiotic are you? Your two largest cities in the entire state directly border the next state. And you want to abolish daylight savings time and make those people's jobs who like traverse the state boundary 75 times a day? You want to make their life like the worst thing ever? Man, you idiot. Like what is... They're so stupid.
Lot to look forward to in coming time. So we'll keep posted on how that goes.
Yeah, I didn't hear that, so that's interesting.
Yeah,
not surprising from that dummy, but we'll see.
One day we'll get you to tell us how you really feel, and I think you'll.
Yeah, no worries, guys. Maybe one day I'll open it up.
Yeah, really stop holding it in. I don't think.
I'll stop holding it in.
Really speak your mind.
Yes.
Well,
maybe someday.
Well, we'll jump off that before we go off the political deep end. So we'll.
I always try to be nice. I'm not. It's just there. It's just ridiculous. I know.
I agree. So, and on that, we'll button it up.
All right.
Okay. Love you guys.
Love you too.
You.
Bye.
Bye.